Alright, I'm going to machine this step. This step right here. I have to thin the tab, and get it down to something inside of 320, which means I got to take 163 off of it. Got to go down 163. But the question is, how far in do I move the bit from where I am? Well, my part is 1 inch 590 wide right now. We've got to keep that in mind. Actually, we may not need to keep that in mind. Our slot inside the compound is 1 inch 300. Our gap here, which we presume is centered, I haven't actually checked that, is 620. So there's 680 is the total of this ledge and this ledge. So 620 plus 340 plus 340 equals 1 inch 300. So, and 340 is half of the difference of these two numbers. 340. 680 is the total of the difference between those two numbers. So half of that is the size of that ledge. So I need to move the tool bit, or I need to move the work towards the tool bit 340 thousandths. Now remember, this doesn't have to be super high precision. It'd be nice for it to fit really good and not have to come back and machine it again. But the parts, actually, I want it to be slightly undersized so I don't have to keep redoing this, keep remounting it. Now I've got 720 thousandths space in there. So if I take my my 340 off of that, 340 off of 720 would be 420 minus 40 would be 380. So if I run this down to 380, my battery's going dead in this thing. There we go. Well, if I only had a turning my stop screw out now, my carriage stop screw. If I only had a micrometer down there. The 3 lathes in this size I've bought, I haven't found one that had that part yet. This thing sells for, geez, a little over $100. Okay, so this has to be 380. Now remember, I came in about a thou close on cutting that down, so that's going to give me a thou clearance here. When I cut this edge, I cut it about a thou too much. So that's going to give me about a thou clearance here if I set this at 380. So how that's going to translate is I'm going to come in here about a thou. I'm going to go that way about a thou too far on the side of this area here, which will be fine. Alright. So now I got to touch off on this part, and then I have to raise the part 163 total. And I'm just watching under the bit for a touch off. I'm going to go ahead and set my carriage stop. I'm going to go ahead and set my carriage stop just in case I have to move the carriage. I can come back to this spot. In fact, I'm going to move the carriage. That's all. Yeah, we're touching off. Okay, locking the carriage up. And I'm going to roll across. Basically, I'm checking to make sure I'm not substantially out of level. Wow. I think I may, oh no, we're touching. Touching a little harder on this side. But we're still not cutting all the way across. And I seem to be having some problem with my dial on the milling attachment. So I'll just measure this with the caliper. Make sure I get the slot the right depth. Alright, it's the next day, late in the afternoon. My wife came downstairs and said, "Did you know it's 3:30 a.m.?" And I said I had no idea. So I stayed up pretty late last night, which got me feeling kind of funky today. So anyways, we can look here before I move the tool, and you can see my tool bit moved out on me. I was worried this would be a problem because this is not an appropriate way to hold one of these tool bits. Really should be done with a collet. But I have the collet. Right here I have a 3T collet that would hold that just fine, but I don't have the nose piece. So I'm still short of the tooling that I need to do projects like this. I just barely have enough tooling to do this job. But I'm going to move ahead, try to get it done. I'm going to go ahead and move this back into the chuck. Alright, I have to reset my carriage stop. And I have off camera dialed this surface in and this surface in here. This milling attachment moves all over the place. I've discovered I can't take a very big cut on metal. 5/1000 is about all I should ever take. Now, the thickness of this part is almost exactly the 290 I need to take off of this side of the block. Sure would like to have a carriage stop for a flat way lathe that has a dial on it, because then I wouldn't need spacers like this to set it. I don't own a set of gauge blocks yet either. And years ago, when I did a lot of lathe work on my own personal projects, I had a set of gauge blocks, and if I wanted to set this space at 300, I would set the gauge blocks in there and and just run the stud right up to it, pull it out, and I knew I had a gap of 300. I just luckily had a piece of metal that was the right gap. Now the problem with how I'm doing this now is I don't have any way to increment the carriage towards the bit, which is going to be a problem. I'm going to have to just creep it along and try not to foul it up. When I drop this part down, I have to make sure and drop it down far enough when I come back the other way, I'm not climb milling. I always want the rotation of the blade against the workpiece to be pushing it away, not dragging it in. There'll be play in the lead screw here, and there'll be slack where the blade could reel in the part, or the tool bit could reel in the part. We don't want that to happen. So I'm running the overall width of the part down to 1 inch 300, or a little shy of 1 inch 300. Then I have to cut a step into the top of it. You can see the step I did on the other side. Took me hours and hours to do this last night. Some of that effort was caused because of my lack of experience, or recent experience. I was taking too big of cuts and making little mistakes here and there, causing the forces to get too great, and causing the milling attachment to move. Now the top of the bit is the top of the milling bit is moving towards the camera. So it's pushing the work away. I could probably improve this quite a bit by changing over to a 4-flute cutter. I don't know if I have one in as good a condition as this 2-flute cutter. This one seemed very sharp, so that's why I started the project with it. So my limitations with this machine so far have really been related to the capacity of the milling attachment to stay on target. As I look at how it's made, it's really a shame that this is not made back over top of the center of the mounting. All of this overhung mass, is just a lever arm on these ways down here. Not the best design. I notice I run the workpiece completely off of the cutter before I advance the work into the cutter for the next cut. Going a little slower. I took a little bit larger of a cut there. I'll stop and take a measurement. Should be something greater than 1 inch 30. 1 inch 300, excuse me. One inch 485. Now you may wonder why I've not been using my power feed. I haven't actually taken the time to clean up and lubricate the gears, and I don't really want to use them until I've finished with that project. All of that stuff functions. I've got 1 or 2 gears in this lathe that seem to fit on the shaft they're rotating on very sloppily, and I don't want to wear out the teeth by using them anyways. So I've just been doing this whole project by hand. It could be on the final cut here. Or at least the final cut of changing the length of the width of the block. Here's something I have to fix. These little short knobs, when I'm turning my hand around, I'm hitting my knuckle on the sides of this bolt. I've got to round that off. You better believe that's going to be one of the very next things that happens to this machine. Beat me to death. Look at that. I have to be under 130. I'm sitting at 1 inch 304. So I'm going to take one more cut to give myself some clearance.
You're doing a Menards?
Absolutely. I need a chip brush.
Chip brush?
A chip brush, yep.
Chip brush.
Let me finish my cut. I'm not exactly sure what I'm taking off here, but it's a very small amount. Probably about 5 thou or less. Get the thing out here where I can make a measurement. Wow, did I misread my tool? Oh, this says I'm at 1.311. I thought it was reading less last time. I'm going to have to check the video. Well, got a little more to take off. Chip brush. Awesome. Oh, there's nothing like that for the job. Just a cheap 58-cent paintbrush. Probably trim the end of it a little bit.